The purpose of jointing boards, running them through the jointer to give us nice, clean, straight edges, is so we can edge glue boards together. Now, there's other reasons you might do that, and actually most of the lumber you buy in the lumberyard has already had that done to it, assuming it hasn't warped, of course. But if you're going to use hardwoods, if you're going to buy hardwood from a hardwood supplier, it's not going to be jointed. What do? Well, the old-fashioned way is to use a jointer plane. That's a long plane, very long flat shoe that allows you to make a long cut, and you make sure you can get those waves out of the board. It still works today, and you can buy modern jointer planes that have a cast iron shoe instead of a wood one like this one, but it's a lot of time and a lot of work. You can joint boards on your table saw. Now, there's a couple of keys here, one of them being that your table saw runs true, not having a lot of waver in your blades, because you don't want a lot of sawtooth marks in there, okay? The other is that your fence has got to be exactly parallel with your saw blade. Otherwise, you're not going to get a clean, straight cut. So, assuming we've got those two things, what do? Well, I don't have either of these edges that I know is straight, but here's a board that I know is straight. So what I'm going to do is attach this board to this board. Now I'll use one of my favorite clamps for this, double-sided masking tape. So with that done, I can run this through my saw and cut this edge straight. I'll move my fence over, so I'm just cutting off the minimum of what I need to do. If we look at the piece I cut off, up at this end, there was no piece, there was just sawdust. And down here, there was no sawdust. In the middle, there was this thin strip we cut off, and then down here at this end, there was a little. So obviously, this edge was not straight. Okay, that's the whole purpose of this exercise. So now I can take this piece off, and I know this edge is straight, and I can reset my fence. And it's up to me whether I take off all my wane or not, okay? I'm going to go ahead and set it to where I think I'll get rid of all my wane. So now I know that I've got two edges that are straight and parallel to each other. Now I still haven't done anything with the surfaces, okay? Typically you'll do one edge and then do your surfaces and then do the other edge. So I now have two edges that I know are parallel to each other. I know they're perpendicular to the face because I set my saw blade perpendicular using a square. So now I've got a board that I can say is jointed. Other than planing it, it's ready for edge gluing. There's another way the table saw is really useful as a jointer, and that is if you do a glue up and it doesn't come out right. Now you may not be able to see this on the camera, but there's a little bit of gap here and a little bit of gap here, even though the middle part of this joint is nicely glued together, okay? Happens all the time, especially if you're using lumber that you've gotten from the lumberyard and you haven't jointed that lumber. A lot of people, what they'll try and do is close that up by putting excessive pressure on with their bar clamps. Sometimes that works, but if you do it, you're putting stresses in there and it'll probably open up eventually. Okay, so what do you do if this happens? Well, you joint it on your table saw. And what I mean by that is I'm going to go ahead and cut this line on the table saw. So I'm going to set my fence so that my cut will literally be right down the center of where I've got these boards jointed together. So now what I've got is I've got two edges that meet up perfectly, and I can re-glue this and I know it'll come out right.